the French press. So this is probably the most common upgrade that people usually go to after they've exhausted the world of just regular machine drip coffee. It's approachable, it's easy to use, it makes good coffee, and today we're going to show you our method of making a French press coffee. Now, like I said in the intro, the French press is incredibly approachable. It's literally just coffee grounds in, pour water over, let it sit, and that's it. There's no swirling, there's no intricate pouring or anything like that. Just let it sit and enjoy a good cup of coffee. Now, the French press doesn't come without its downsides, and we're going to get into those in a second, but really for this video is for someone that is just getting into specialty coffee, that wants to take their brewing up a notch, but doesn't really want to invest in a lot of equipment. Now, I've mentioned in previous videos that I started kind of my specialty coffee journey trying to make higher end coffee in the break room of our corporate job, and that was all done with a French press. So I owe a great deal to this little piece of equipment, and that's why I wanted to start off early in our brewing series going over the French press and how we recommend that you use it to get the best brew possible. Making a French press is really pretty straightforward. All you need is the equipment in front of me and a grinder. And I do say you really do have to have a grinder to make a French press, because the grind that you need to make a French press well is significantly coarser than your pre-ground coffee that you're going to use in a drip brewer machine. The French press is an immersion brew similar to an AeroPress. You can check out our AeroPress recipe using this link. And it's going to allow that bed of coffee to sit immersed in water for an extended period of time, and that's how it's going to extract. And this is quite a bit different from a pour over method or a drip method where the water actually flows through the bed of coffee. Now, of course, I went ahead and pre-ground this coffee to a coarse setting, and we're going to use a ratio of 1 part coffee to 12 parts water to get started. You can mess around with this ratio if you would like. I actually prefer my coffee a little bit stronger, so sometimes I'll go like 1 to 10 parts coffee to water, or if you like a little weaker coffee, you can go even like 1 part coffee to 14 or 16 parts water. It's really about personal preference in this, but we're going to take 1 to 12 as a baseline, and then you can manipulate it from there. To get started, all we're going to do is we're going to take our French press and we're going to add our coffee to the bottom. We're going to go ahead and set this on our scale just so we have all of our measurements. And we have our kettle here. This water has been preheated to 205 degrees Fahrenheit, right below boiling. And this is the same as with any other recommended method. Our pour overs and everything like that all use the same 205 degrees. So for this recipe, I'm using 60 grams of coffee and 700 grams of water. I think it's actually like 58 grams of coffee is 1 to 12. But just for easy math, I went ahead and did 60 grams of coffee, 700 grams of water. Okay? And this makes, if you can do that math, if you can convert really quickly, that makes 24 ounces of coffee, which is 2 cups of coffee, because I've learned, being married for almost 12 years, that I'm almost going to certainly have to share this. So I never just make 1 cup of coffee. When I'm making coffee, it's for 2. I'm at my office right now, and I'm still pretty sure that my wife's going to smell this, and she's going to try and come and get some coffee. So I'm going to go ahead and make 2 cups worth of coffee, because I think that's just more valuable. And that's kind of one of the things that benefits the French press over, say, a single pour over method, where you can make more cups out of a single pour. So 700 grams of water. We're still going to do a bloom to start. We're going to do it for 30 seconds. So I'm going to do maybe like 100 grams of water in, let it sit for 30 seconds, and then finish pouring in the rest of the water. And that's going to let that carbon dioxide as part of the roasting process off gas. So turn our scale on, and I'm going to hit my start button here, my timer, and I'm going to pour in till we get to about 100 grams. And I'm really just making sure here that I'm getting all of the coffee, and there's 105. And we're going to let this sit for 30 seconds and let it bloom. And as you can see in the bed of coffee here, there's a bunch of bubbles and off-gassing happening, and that's part of the bloom phase. All right, we're just past 30 seconds, so we're going to continue to pour. And again, all we're doing, we're not swirling or anything. We're just trying to make sure that all of the grounds are saturated. So I'm not doing any specific pour. I'm just going to try and get to 700 grams of water. All right, we're at 700 grams. Now I will take a little stir, and I will give it a stir here at the end to make sure that all of my coffee grounds are nice and saturated so that we get the optimal extraction. And that's it. So we're going to look at the time, and it's at 1 minute and 30 seconds. That's the amount of time that it took to bloom. And then for me to pour in the water, we're going to wait 4 minutes. So at 5.5 minutes, we're going to come back, and that's it. We'll almost be ready to serve. So I'll see you again in about 4 minutes. Now, while we wait, you may have noticed that I haven't done anything with this plunger yet. This comes at the very end. The only time that I put this in before the brew is complete is if I want to move it somewhere else to make sure that it doesn't spill. Otherwise, it stays off. This is going to allow the brew to take full effect. And unlike what you might expect with this filter is only there to separate the coffee grounds from the water. We don't use this to actually press or anything. We actually want to avoid pressing into the bed of coffee with this because it could lead to silt and sediment getting into our cup of coffee. So we're actually not going to use this except to pour our coffee into our cup and use this as sort of a strainer. And we're back. So it's been about 4.5 minutes. You can see that the coffee has drastically changed color. It started out as water, and then it was kind of a light tan color, and now it's completely dark as you would expect coffee to be. So we are approaching 5 minutes and 30 seconds of total time. Remember, we had our 30-second brew time, our time to pour in, and then we waited 4 minutes. All right, so we are at 5 minutes. We're going to go ahead. Now we're going to use our plunger here. So we're going to take this, we're going to set it gently on top. I'm actually going to take it off the scale for this part. Move this out of the way. Okay. And so here's the part where you can decide how you want to do. Some people just like to use the plunger. I actually prefer just to leave the plunger in the up position and pour through the filter here through the spout. But if you do insist on plunging, make sure that you don't plunge all the way to the bottom. So when you plunge slowly and stop before you put pressure on the coffee at the bottom. So that bed is going to be depressed down by the plunger. Just make sure that you leave a gap between the bottom of the French press and the bed of coffee so that you don't disturb that sediment and push all that up into the actual coffee that you're trying to filter out. And there you have it, a finished French press. This is ready to go into a cup. Now, one of the caveats, and we'll get into the downsides of a French press here in a second, but one of the things that I would recommend is to immediately pour the entire contents of the French press out and separate it from the press itself. Because again, you still have this bed of coffee in there that is actually continuing some level of extraction. So you want to get this liquid out of the French press in its entirety and not just leave half of it sitting in there, okay? So we're going to go ahead and grab our cup. We're going to pour in our coffee, and that looks delicious and perfect. And by leaving that plunger off, we've actually allowed this temperature to go down in the coffee itself. So it's actually pretty close to being able to drink. Now it's still warm, but it's actually pretty close to being able to drink. And there you go, French press coffee. It doesn't get much easier making specialty coffee than this. But before we close out the video, I would be remiss if I did not mention the downsides to French press coffee. I kind of touched on one of them already, and that is the silt and sediment that may get into the cup of coffee because the French press uses all metal filters, right? So it's not going to be as good as getting those fine particles out as, say, like a Chemex filter. With a Chemex, the paper is really thick, and none of that fine particles are going to make it through. With a French press, you are going to get some sediment into the cup. There's no avoiding it. But in order to prevent that from happening as much as possible and not have excess sediment and everything in the bottom of your cup, don't plunge that all the way down to the bottom, and try to avoid disturbing the vessel itself as much as possible as you're brewing. Now, the second thing that's less than ideal about the French press is it is a little bit difficult to clean up. There's no easy filter that you can take out and toss. You actually have to knock out all the grounds into the trash can, and then you have to rinse it out, and you have to really kind of take apart that entire plunger mechanism to clean it thoroughly after every use. It's not hard. It's just an extra step that you don't have to worry about with your regular filter coffee or like a Chemex or a V60 or something like that. With Chemexes and V60s, you toss the paper and you just rinse out the vessel and you put it back on the shelf and you're good to go. Finally, a third downside to making French press coffee is that the discerning coffee drinker can usually tell the difference between an immersion brew method and a pour through brew method, like the pour over coffees or like a filter coffee. It's going to taste a little bit thicker, a little bit grittier because of some of those fine particles that come through there. So just keep that in mind. It's not a bad flavor. A lot of people really love the taste of French press coffee, but it's just something to consider that if the first time you drink it, you're like, oh, this is interesting and different. It's actually really because it does have a very distinctive flavor. But in terms of like ease of use and versatility, you can use this to make cold brew. You can use this to make tea. It doesn't get much better than a French press. Now, recommendations here. Like I mentioned, 1:12 ratio on the coffee to water. And then I would recommend using a medium or a dark roast coffee to try out a French press. I don't think light roasts translate as well to a French press as the medium and dark roast do. So try it out with a medium roast. I really think you're going to be pleased with this. If you do have any questions about French presses or really any brew method, just leave them down in the comments. I'll be happy to address those. I hope you like this video. If you want to see other different kind of brew methods, let us know. I have, I don't know, 50 different brewers at home and throughout the office. So I'll be happy to demonstrate on pretty much anything that you would like. Just leave those recommendations in the comments as well. Subscribe to our channel for more videos like this, and we'll see you again real soon.